Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
What's going on, fans? What is up? It is Anthony Armstrong on Believe in Commanders. I'm with my guy Brian Murphy, all the way down there in the ATL. What's going on, Brian? How you doing?
Not too much. I know we took a couple of days just kind of basking in this big win over Aaron Rodgers. So been living high off of that. And Commanders are riding a nice little 2-game win streak. So I'm feeling pretty good. Plus the weather is getting to be fully fall. So I'm all about it.
It is definitely fully fall. The temperature has fallen.
Yes.
At least here over the past, it's not raining now, but it was raining for a while. So there was rain falling. But tell me this, what's going on with Bet Online? What's going on with them and those odds?
Well, yeah, we know that the football season is about halfway through now, or getting there at least. It's crazy. And basketball is back. So that's what fall means with October, November rolling around. So head over to Bet Online, remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at Bet Online. And as your continued source for all sports wagering information, Bet Online features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. We were just talking about before we started recording about how the latest odds, we missed out on those because we did it early and it kind of cost us a pick. So we'll talk about that later. But always the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports and events, whether it's the NFL, the NBA, NHL, MMA, the World Series coming up, tennis, boxing, or even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit and use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts.
I love it. The AAA parlay hit
That's what I'm talking about.
over there. I forget what three they were, but it was Seattle, Kansas City, and I think Vegas.
So
The Jets. I think it was the Jets. The Jets.
The afternoon game. So it's like the quadruple A, triple A afternoon parlay.
Yeah, but I only do those three. I just always feel like whenever you combine those 12 o'clock games, anything can happen.
Right.
And there's no telling. I mean, hell, Carolina got after Tom Brady, and
wild.
I was like, is my screen messed up? It was like,
Yeah.
14-0. I said, you about to get off the sticks.
And then and the game I was talking about, Miami closed, or I guess the game started with them as a 7-point favorite. Or that's where we took it at or something there, and they only won by 6 and we lost it. So gotta check those current up-to-date odds and can bet during the game. So always check out betonline.ag. But the game that mattered the most, the Commanders get the job done at FedEx Field against the Pack. They get the W, and they're riding high with a 2-game win streak. What are your initial thoughts after taking down the Cheeseheads? And we saw, I think it was Percy Butler stealing a cheesehead from a fan. He didn't steal it, but he borrowed a cheesehead from a fan. They were celebrating with it.
The Cheeseheads are getting the headpiece is getting disrespected over the past few weeks. There's been in a lot of visiting locker rooms lately.
It's getting to be like the horns down. Like it's becoming a thing that is an ultimate slap in the face. And you got to start winning games if you want to be taken seriously, I guess.
That is true. Folks are basically saying they're not lactose intolerant. They're not afraid of a little extra cheddar. But it was a great team win. I mean, it was glad to see those guys add on to what happened up in Chicago. I mean, people, were bashing them, saying, hey, it was an ugly win. It was just Chicago. Meanwhile, Chicago goes into New England and puts a beating on Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones and Bill Belichick and whoever else they want to throw back out there. These guys, Washington came in and played a good game. They did what they had to do. They ran the ball. They were physical, and they rallied behind Taylor Heinicke. That's the part that I love the most, is that people had more fire about them. I mean, even just watching a little bit of the highlights that I got to see, hearing it on the radio, you could tell there was some energy behind this team, and they went out there and they got the results.
Yeah, it sounded like watching it on TV that there were definitely some Pack fans there. We know that FedEx is susceptible to away fans taking over, but when there were key situations, it sounded like it got pretty loud for the home team, and that was exciting to hear. I think there was a little bit of energy. I think they knew that this was an important game, a winnable game, like we said that it could be. And you're right, they rallied around each other. They rallied around Taylor Heinicke. I think Taylor Heinicke was what you expected. We saw some really good. We saw some really exciting. We saw some really bad, and it was all wrapped into one. And at the end of the day, he came out with a W. And if he can do that more often than not, you'll be okay for the rest of the season.
Well, you talk about the rest of the season. I mean, with Carson Wentz going on IR, I want to ask you this: minimum 4 weeks. What does the team look like over these next four? Obviously, this was one, so 3 remaining games. What do you think they can look like? What do you think they're going to do?
Well, so I got maybe a little too excited to see that they wouldn't have to face Matt Ryan. I know Matt Ryan has struggled this year, but you don't know what Sam Ellinger is. I think you can get after a young quarterback. So I was like, okay, you're feeling pretty good. There's a chance you could go to 500. And then you got a daunting stretch of or back-to-back of Vikings and Eagles, and that'll be tough. And then you finish with the Texans. So if you can get 2 of those 4 games, you got to feel okay about it. It's hanging around right there near 500. You see where you're at. Do you bring Carson Wentz back? Do you keep rolling with Taylor Heinicke? That'll become the question. And then it comes into the whole thing of 70% of snaps played. Do you want to do that and then cost yourself a second round pick as opposed to a third round pick? There's so many things that go into this, but I'm the easy answer for me is do whatever gives you the best chance to win, because right now this team is, believe it or not, in the playoff hunt. And so keep yourself in the playoff hunt, hang around there, and you never know what can happen.
Yeah, I think 2-2 is probably the ideal. It's probably the most realistic to look at, just to say, okay, Philly is Philly. They're a good team. Honestly, I don't see many people beating them unless they beat themselves. And then Minnesota, that was that one game where there's going to be some energy in the building. The FedEx is going to it's going to be blacked out, all black units. Kirk Cousins is coming back. So maybe you have that extra energy. And I think that's the other game that Washington can get. And I mean, if anybody is going to slay the dragon and ruin the homecoming of Mr. You Like That, it would be Taylor Heinicke.
That's right.
I mean, if anybody else is going to do it, it would be Taylor Heinicke. So 2-2 is the bare minimum over these next 4 games. 3-1, I think, is like lovely. If Washington can go 3-1, I'm happy with that outcome.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, looking at the standings, I know you're only 7 games into a 17-game schedule, so you're not actually even halfway yet, but you have as many wins as the 7 seed, right? The Rams by default have the 7 seed because they had a bye week, so they've only played 6 games. They're 3-3. Then you look at the teams ahead of you, the Falcons, who you play later on. The Packers are technically the 9 seed. So the Commanders are the 11 seed. Falcons are 10 seed. You play later on this season. Packers, you beat them. 49ers, I think they might have. So, I mean, it's all right in front of you. You got the chance to go get it. And I think Ron Rivera is going to have to take a long look at things. If Taylor Heinicke is really starting to get this offense clicking, then you got to roll with him regardless of whether or not Carson Wentz is back healthy. But if it starts to stall a little bit, you kind of have a good situation, and Carson Wentz is back healthy, you might be able to put him in there to give yourself a boost.
I'm going to say this. I always believe that winning is going to be more beneficial to your organization than trying to, force losses and try to improve draft position. I mean, unless Superman is on that draft board and you're going to be able to get him, you don't even play those games. Because I do think it's infectious whenever you win games and there's an energy behind it. Like, people can build behind that, but whenever you know that a team is, I guess you wouldn't know, but if you're losing, nobody's excited about that. You sure as hell aren't going to draw in a free agent and be like, hey, yeah, I know we sucked last year. We just picked first, but will you sign with us? They're going to be like, no, we're good. But if you're a team on the upswing, maybe you do get a key free agent. Maybe you get somebody to come play in the linebacker position and help solidify the team. So I say you do what you got to do to continue winning, just like you said. And if it's Taylor Heinicke, keep rolling with the momentum. Don't worry about switching.
So speaking of Taylor Heinicke, what did you think that he did well, or what did you see from the offense? Because it felt like they finally, they didn't put up a whole lot of points. I mean, 23 is not a whole lot, and it felt like they left some points on the board as they got closer to the end zone. But what did you think from the offense as a whole, and maybe what did Heinicke bring that we haven't seen so far this year?
I was in a little conversation on Twitter where someone was. They were commenting on the way that Scott Turner called the game. They said, if they call it like this, I mean, this would be great. And they're talking along the lines of having to do with the arm strength of the quarterback, Carson Wentz, and, Scott Turner wants to throw it. Look, I think that it comes down to who you're most comfortable with. If you have, it's going to be a weird compare. Okay, let's use it like a comfy. Let's use it like a comfy chair because I'm gonna stay out of trouble. All right, you have your old comfy recliner, and you know how that thing sits, and you can sit in there, and you know all the moves. But when you get a new one, you don't know everything about it yet. You usually take it a little bit slower. So I'm thinking that Carson Wentz was out there, and it's not that he doesn't understand the playbook, but maybe you have to get him started in a certain way. Teams know how to play against Carson Wentz, too. They were taking away deep passes against him. Now that Taylor Heinicke's in the game, it gives you a different, a little bit of different balance. It gives you a different way to attack the team. And I think that it's a difference in quarterback allows Scott Turner to, open up the playbook a little bit, and having Brian Robinson in there and have it be his third game now. You really get to see him, be involved in the running game, and it helps set the identity, especially following what the Jets did last week against them.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think we talked about the fact that he, outside of Scott Turner, whose offense it is, Taylor Heinicke probably knows that offense better than anybody on that team. So it made a lot of sense to have him out there, and it was nice to see him have some successful plays. The throw he made to Gibson in the end zone, the deep shot to Terry McLaurin. Like we saw some really good throws. We saw the bad too, don't get me wrong. But I think the biggest thing was the mobility. I think Carson Wentz, whether he's been more banged up than he's let on all season long, and he's just never really been that mobile of a guy. I mean, he's been able to move a little bit, but it seems like he's kind of hesitated ever since he had that first knee injury way back when. But that mobility was so key, and I think it was so important for the offense, and it kind of allowed Taylor to make some plays that we haven't seen all season long. And so I think that's going to be exciting to see. Hopefully he doesn't take off and run earlier than he should on occasion, but I think that mobility and that flexibility was really cool to see. And then, yeah, the running game was the best it's been. I don't know if that's true yards wise, but both guys got involved. I think I want to say Brian Robinson had more touches, but, Antonio Gibson made the most of his touches, including a touchdown. So they seem to spread the ball around pretty effectively. Curtis Samuel had a couple of big catches and big moments. So, I just love the way that they spread that ball around. It reminded me of the first game against Jacksonville, and that's what Carson Wentz did. And I think that's when this offense is the best. You're not leaning on one guy, but you're spreading it around a little bit. And Heinicke and Scott Turner did a good job of that.
Yeah, they did a really good job. I do think this is a good recipe moving forward. This is more of like what you would have expected to have seen from the offense.
Yeah. And we keep forgetting, and again, not going to make it an excuse, but Jahan Dotson hasn't been out there. Logan Thomas hasn't been out there. You've been playing musical chairs with your offensive linemen. So if these guys can get healthy, especially those two receiving playmakers, you might have some more weapons. You might have a chance to really start to spread it around and finally maybe get to see what Scott Turner fully has in his bag.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. It'll be exciting. There's a lot of season left. And a lot more adjustments to make as we move forward.
What do you make of the defense? Obviously, no sacks. I think Aaron Rodgers' game plan, whether it's his hand or whether it's they were having issues with their offensive line, but the defense, it seemed like they were going to rush for all game long and be okay with it. It seems like they put enough pressure on Aaron Rodgers. It just seemed like they did a solid job. No turnovers, no sacks, but they just did a solid job when they needed to.
That one is a masterful performance. That performance is film study. That performance is everybody understanding what you see on tape. And like I could imagine the linebackers and the whole entire defense watching the same 10 plays and everybody having to recite like what's coming up. Mm-hmm. Because Green Bay, they run what they run. I mean, they run what they run. Like they're going to do the quick, the bunch, and they're going to throw it to the flat real quick to try to get a yard. And Kendall Fuller jumped that,
blew it up, yep,
and left Sammy Watkins to run the go, because he basically knew Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to throw that. So that's film study. That right there is communication. That's the type of performance that you want to see. Don't get upset that you don't have the sacks and all that stuff. you got a W, and
Yep.
you beat one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, and you did it with great performance across the board. I mean, Cole Holcomb 5 tackles, 4 assists. I mean, there was a lot of guys getting active.
Yeah.
That was a great performance in my eyes.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for an incredible makeshift throw for the second Aaron Jones touchdown, you would have been talking about this defense only giving up 1 touchdown, and that was early in the game. So yeah, I'm with you. They played a great job. This isn't a Packers podcast, but you can tell that they're missing Devontae Adams. That you could tell this defense was not afraid of Sammy Watkins. They had a healthy respect for Alan Lazard. But, I'm sure they were licking their chops when they knew Randall Cobb and Christian Watson were down, because they kind of knew that it was going to be an Aaron Jones, Alan Lazard game. And those guys got theirs. Alan Lazard had a couple nice catches. He was a little banged up, but yeah, I'm with you. The defense knew what was coming, and I'm sure they have in the past, but at least this week they knew what was coming and they were able to do something about it. And so that was really impressive to see. I felt like it was kind of the first time they made a couple of adjustments. The Packers were running that toss that was working. And then, I'd be interested to see, how little yards on the ground that they got, because obviously Aaron Jones did most of his damage through the air. So just solid performance. It's not all about takeaways all the time. We know this team has struggled with that, but Aaron Rodgers doesn't do that. He's all about the quick passes, and they made the plays when it mattered the most.
I mean, the Washington held Green Bay to 38 yards rushing and 232 yards total. I mean, that's a great performance. Forced a fumble, and there were opportunities out there that Green Bay did make some plays, and there were penalties that negated that. So sometimes you dodge it, and then all you can do is just look up and say thank you, appreciate that. So all of a sudden things are incomplete, and everything's going wrong for you. But hey, you take them how you get them. And if you have to, dodge a, interception because of a penalty that happened, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. That's the way the ball bounces. So
yeah, and it bounced. I mean, it all evens out in the end. It happens to every team that it goes one way and not the other. So for this week, at least on those calls, it went the Commanders' way. But you got to take advantage of it, and you got to take advantage of getting a second chance. One place I felt like the Commanders struggled, I mentioned it earlier, was in the red zone. Did you see anything that might be causing that? Is that a lack of a full repertoire or full arsenal of weapons, or anything there that you saw? I mean, it's kind of frustrating to settle for what they have, 3 field goals. So I feel like there are a couple things that they can work on. Obviously, it wasn't perfect, but I think they got to be able to punch the ball into the end zone a little bit more.
You definitely want to get into the end zone over kicking field goals when you get in the red zone. That's the key. But the red zone is a tricky area. You really only get to work it one day, like one period on one day throughout the week, and then now all those reps would have been going to Carson. True. So out of all of them, maybe 2 go to Taylor. During a normal week. I'm going to chalk it up to just saying, hey, this is your first game with the new guy. And that would probably explain some of the throws that were behind, where, Taylor probably has to anticipate more and throw it in a different location to throw some passes. But they'll get the red zone woes figured out as they work together more. I would expect it to improve this week and moving forward. But you only get so much time to work it. You got a whole new guy that's seeing different things, and those windows close tightly, and you got to have some arm strength to throw that ball in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that missing Logan Thomas and Jahan Dotson are a big part of that. We know, I can think of a couple of red zone plays that Logan Thomas has made over the years, and then Jahan Dotson, 2 of his maybe. Two or 3 of his touchdowns came in the red zone.
Yeah, at least 2.
Yeah, so he's a big part what they want to do down there. I think they missed him in that Tennessee game. It just seems like the red zone might be that final spot where the offense will need to get going. Obviously, they can do a little bit more. I'm not saying that they're perfect, but it seems like, yeah, if you were able to punch a couple of those field goals in for touchdowns, you kind of put Aaron Rodgers out of this game a little bit earlier than you did.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about it. You add you go 14, let's just say 14-0 versus 6-0.
Yep.
If I'm on the 6-0 side, I'm the coach and I'm sitting here saying, hey, we've been getting our ass whooped this whole game and we're only down 6.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Versus we've been getting our ass whooped and we down 14. Y'all better come on because the next dude's finna get on the stick here in a second and we gonna have to go home. Like, two different mentalities.
Right.
Down by 6, hey, we got a chance. Down by 14, like, hey, man, come on. We got to do something. Let's do it.
Yeah, and I would love to see this team do something like that. You know, we'll talk more about the Colts coming up, but against a quarterback who, I don't know, I don't know off the top of my head if this is Sam Ehlinger's first start, but against a quarterback that is at the very least very inexperienced, they need to get out there. They need to cash in some of these early opportunities, and they need to, you know, put him behind, put them down early, and hopefully, you know, build some more momentum, get a third win in a row. I just think that they can just be a little bit more crisp, despite the 2 wins. I think that's the one thing they got to work on.
Yeah. So Sam Ehlinger did get to start. Like,
okay,
he started last year, and he's played in the league out of the University of Texas, the Hook'em Horns.
That's right.
He likes to use his legs. And I was just thinking about this. There's a lot of number 4s at quarterback that are lining up in the league this year, which is kind of crazy. And they're all, and most of them are backups that are coming in, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So with Ehlinger, you're gonna get a guy that can run the ball. He's tough. He's gonna put his head down and try to get some yards with his feet. And I'm not sure. I'm gonna try to see if Jonathan Taylor, what his health is like, but you would have to assume that the majority of the load would have to be on the running game.
Yeah.
And to try to get that defense to show up and make some plays and make it difficult on Washington. So it's not a slouch. Not a slouch at all, but you got to think that Matt Ryan wasn't going to run. Mm-hmm. And now you're going to have to deal with a quarterback that will be willing to tuck the ball and run a little bit.
Well, yeah, Washington played down here in Atlanta last year, and I think they got after Matt Ryan a couple of times. Yeah, he's not much of a threat to get outside the pocket and do a whole lot. So that is a good point. It kind of, honestly, when you were describing the Colts, it kind of sounds like you're talking a little bit like the Commanders. I mean, a young quarterback that's a little more athletic than your average quarterback. Potential 2-headed monster at running back in Taylor and Hines, and then Robinson and Gibson in DC. So it'll be an interesting matchup. I think both teams feel like they could still win this game despite everything that's gone on for their team. So it'll be interesting to break that down a little bit more. But any remaining thoughts from the Packers win that you can see as maybe being something that this team leans back on, or is there anything that encouraged you other than what we've talked about? And while you're thinking about it, I want to throw mine out there real quick. I thought Jamin Davis made some really solid plays. I feel like he didn't overrun things. I feel like when he was in a spot to tackle, he made some plays. I felt like him and Holcomb really worked well together. And I don't know the PFF grades and all of that. I don't know how much merit you put into that, but I felt like they were in good spots the entire game, and they did their jobs. And that was encouraging to see for a unit that we've really been talking about mostly negatively throughout the season. So it was good to see Davis specifically, but him and Holcomb kind of get after it and make a couple of nice plays for the linebackers.
I like that one because mine entails that. Just going back to what I said, that everybody looked to be playing together. And this is the 7th week, so these guys have been playing together. They can kind of sit down and have some self-scouting, and it's shown that they've been actually, getting on this in the film and making sure everybody is on the same page. I see this as being a major pivot point for this team. Right now they have the jet fuel to go on a nice high trajectory and right. Finish out this next 4 games on a high note. And I think they really have an opportunity to do something special. And you worry about, what you're going to do at the quarterback position 4 weeks from now. But right now they're going to go and focus on Indianapolis, another winnable game after getting through with this is right in the middle of that crazy October. So I think they're sitting in a pretty good position.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited about it. Well, we will break it down later on this week. We'll talk more about the Colts and their kind of wild card at quarterback as well. Just like we all thought it'd be Sam Ellinger and Taylor Heinicke when we circled Washington versus Indy this year when we saw the schedule come out. So that'll be fun to talk about. But hey, coming off a victory, you got to feel good. 2 in a row, a good chance to make it 3 in a row. So we'll update you with injury news and roster news and all that as we have another show later on this week. And we're excited to get after it. Another chance, like Anthony said, for a winnable game.
Yes, indeed. And thanks to the folks over there on Bet Online. Make sure y'all go over there to betonline.ag. Use the code BELIEVE, BLEAV. The welcome bonus is 50%. So we still getting you something. You still get a little something. The 100% was just a promo for a certain time period, but hey, it's all good.
Still free money
in there.
Yeah,
and you can still participate. Tune in later on this week. You'll get the AAA parlay. You can play it on there and catch us on TuneIn Radio as well.
Speaking of TuneIn, I was going to say that was nice.
Yeah, throw those guys in there. I love it. I love being able to tell, catch me on TuneIn Radio. Yeah, absolutely. Just nice and just slide on over there.
Yeah, I love it. And this will be posted on YouTube so you can watch it as well if you want to see our pretty faces. But we appreciate you checking out the show. And like we said, we'll be back with our preview of Indianapolis and the Commanders and then our picks as well. But until then, be good. And we appreciate you tuning in.
See you on the next one.